Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, sons and daughters of the Most High, listen closely, because what I'm about to say is not just information, it's revelation. God's chosen ones, do you know you're about to be rich? I'm not talking about maybe, possibly, someday if the stars align and the economy behaves. No. I'm talking about a divine certainty, a kingdom promise. You are not just anyone walking this earth. You are chosen, set apart, marked by heaven for greatness. And heaven does not do broke. Now let me make something clear. Wealth is not just about money. It includes money, but it's also about influence, purpose, authority, peace, and legacy. Because if you've got millions but no mission, you're still bankrupt. But if you've got purpose and the power to produce, then baby, you've got the formula for unstoppable wealth. You are chosen, and chosen ones are not meant to live in lack. This truth isn't rooted in emotion, it's rooted in identity. From the very beginning, when God called his people, he called them out of lack, out of bondage, out of limitation, and into covenant. That covenant wasn't built on poverty or barely getting by. It was built on abundance, dominion, and overflow. Being chosen means you've been handpicked by the creator of the universe for a purpose. And purpose always comes with provision. Lack does not serve your destiny. Struggle does not glorify God when it becomes your permanent residence. Yes, there may be seasons of stretching, of testing, of wilderness, but the wilderness is never the destination. It's the preparation. God never calls anyone to stay in the wilderness. He brings them through it to enter the promise. When you accept that you are chosen, you must also accept the weight of what that means. You are not ordinary. You are not random. Your existence is not a coincidence. And because you're not ordinary, your resources can't be ordinary. Your mindset can't be ordinary. Your expectations can't be ordinary. There's a reason the enemy works overtime to convince God's chosen ones to settle for scraps. Because if you ever truly grasped what's yours, you'd stop begging and start building. You'd stop surviving and start leading. Lack is a lie that's been passed down through generations, especially among the faithful, as if holiness and poverty are siblings. They're not. Obedience and overflow are siblings. Righteousness and abundance go hand in hand because God doesn't just call people, he equips them. And he doesn't just equip them with ideas, he equips them with resources, favor, wisdom, strategy, and yes, look at every person God has used mightily throughout Scripture, and you'll see the same pattern. Abraham, chosen and blessed beyond measure. Joseph went from the pit to managing a nation's entire economy. David, chosen, fought battles, led a kingdom, and left wealth for the next generation. Esther, chosen, strategically positioned to access the king's wealth and influence to save her people. Over and over again, the pattern remains. God's chosen ones are elevated. They're resourced. They are not meant to stay hidden in corners or buried in debt. They're meant to be visible, impactful, and fully equipped to carry out kingdom assignments. But here's the thing. Being chosen doesn't automatically mean you're walking in abundance. It means you have the right to it. It's available to you. But just like Israel had to go take the promised land, you have to move toward what is yours. And moving requires a mindset shift. As long as you see yourself as less than, as long as you agree with the lies that say this is just how it is, you'll live beneath your inheritance. You can't claim chosen status while clinging to a poverty mentality. You can't speak favor on Sunday and then speak fear and lack the rest of the week. Your words, your habits, and your expectations must align with your identity. To be chosen means to live in divine alignment. It means to walk like someone backed by heaven because you are. It means to believe for more, not because you're greedy, but because you've got work to do. And purpose is expensive. Vision costs. Legacy isn't built on leftovers. So when God calls you chosen, he's not just calling you special, he's calling you responsible. Responsible for impact, responsible for territory, responsible for stewarding abundance well. Wealth is tied to obedience and purpose. It is not random. And it's not purely the result of hard work alone. Plenty of people work hard and never see overflow. The distinction between working endlessly and walking in wealth is alignment with the assignment God placed on your life. When you obey divine instruction, you unlock provision that already exists in the realm of your purpose. Obedience is the door. Wealth is on the other side. But you don't get access by merely wishing or even by praying alone. You access it by moving when God speaks, even when it doesn't make logical sense. When God gives you an instruction, it is never just about the moment. It's about positioning. Abraham was told to leave his land and go to a place he'd never seen. That wasn't just a spiritual test. It was a positioning move. Obedience caused him to be in the right place at the right time to receive the covenant blessing. If he had delayed, he would have missed the divine setup. This is how wealth works for the chosen. It follows purpose, and purpose follows obedience. And chain reaction in the spirit. Every time you move in obedience, heaven moves in response. Many people ask for increase, but they haven't increased their level of obedience. They want multiplication, but they're still debating God's instructions. Wealth comes not just from what you do, but from doing what you were specifically called to do. The blessing is not on every idea, it's on the right idea. The idea birthed from prayer, from clarity, from alignment with your calling. Purpose is the container that holds wealth. When you pour your energy into something outside of your purpose, you can work for decades and still feel like you're chasing pennies. But when you step into what you were born to do, grace kicks in. Favor flows, opportunities find you, resources locate you, because when purpose and obedience merge, supernatural things begin to manifest in natural spaces. Obedience also includes stewardship. Sometimes the wealth is already in your hands, but your ability to manage it hasn't caught up with your prayer life. You're asking for more, but mismanaging what you have. Obedience in handling money, budgeting, investing, sowing, giving, and saving is part of unlocking the next level. God is not just concerned with blessing you, he's concerned with trusting you. Wealth is a responsibility. It's not given for comfort alone. It's given for assignment. If God gives you millions, but you're disconnected from your purpose, that money will serve no eternal value. But when you're locked in to why you were born, the wealth becomes a tool to expand vision, liberate others, and fulfill kingdom agendas. Some people are waiting on a financial miracle, but the instruction to activate it has already been given. God may have told you to start the business, write the book, launch the coaching program, buy the land, make the phone call, invest in the training. But instead of moving, you hesitated, analyzed, and delayed. Delay is disobedience in disguise. Wealth doesn't flow to hesitation. It flows to action rooted in faith. And that action comes when you're more committed to the voice of God than the opinions of people. Purpose without obedience is frustration. Obedience without purpose is misdirection. But when you obey within your purpose, wealth becomes inevitable. You're not chasing it, it's following you, as scripture promises. Goodness and mercy, abundance and favor, all following you because you're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing with the right heart. Wealth is not a reward for performance, it is a result of positioning. You get into position by obeying the last instruction God gave you, even if it stretches you, even if it costs you, even if it doesn't make sense to others. God's economy operates above the world's economy. It is not bound by market crashes, inflation rates, interest hikes, or government policies. While the systems of the world are designed to keep people surviving, God's system is designed to bring people into overflow. The principles that govern divine wealth are not dictated by Wall Street or your credit score. They are dictated by the word, by faith, and by obedience. In God's economy, 5 loaves and 2 fish feed thousands. In God's economy, oil keeps flowing as long as there are vessels to receive it. In God's economy, a widow can outgive the rich because her offering was connected to faith, not to quantity. When you operate under the world's economy, you're at the mercy of its cycles. When the economy dips, fear rises. People pull back, stop investing, stop sowing, and start hoarding. But in God's economy, famine can become a setup for favor. Isaac sowed in a time of famine and reaped 100-fold in the same year. That's not good timing. That's divine timing. That's what happens when you operate under a different system. God does not need ideal conditions to bless you. He needs alignment and faith. The conditions around you may be falling apart, but when your source is heaven, your supply is not affected by the instability of man. The world teaches scarcity. God teaches abundance. The world says there's only so much to go around. God says there's more than enough. When Peter let down his net in obedience to Jesus, he didn't just catch a few fish. He caught so many that his boat began to sink. That's not normal. That's not logical, but that's kingdom. The overflow that comes from God does not just bless you, it forces you to call others to help carry the blessing. That's how his economy works. It doesn't just meet the need, it exceeds it. It multiplies. It creates legacy, impact, and capacity. Operating in God's economy requires a mindset shift. You cannot think like the world and expect kingdom results. You cannot walk in fear and expect faith to produce. The world teaches you to chase money, chase security, chase position. But God teaches you to seek first his kingdom, and all these things will be added to you. You don't have to chase when you're in alignment. You attract what you are prepared to steward. God's economy responds to those who are trusted with little and ready for much. The currency in the kingdom is not dollars, it's faith. Faith moves mountains, opens doors, releases provision, and multiplies resources. The widow at Zarephath had just enough flour and oil for one final meal, but she obeyed the prophet's instruction, and her supply never ran out. That's not the world's system. That's heaven's system. It's based on trust, on listening, on moving even when you don't understand. It doesn't make sense to give when you barely have enough. But that's often the very act that opens the floodgates. Because in God's economy, your seed determines your harvest. Not just financial seed, but the seeds of time, energy, service, obedience, and faith. God is not watching the economy. He's watching your posture. He's watching whether you will trust him when it's tight. He's watching whether you will believe for more when the world says settle. He's watching whether you will keep sowing when others are panicking. The principles that govern his economy are consistent, unshaken, and eternal. While the systems of the world rise and fall, his word stands forever. The kingdom is not in recession. The kingdom is not confused. The kingdom is not broke. It's fully resourced, fully funded, and fully prepared to support your assignment when you choose to operate in its system. Your harvest is coming. Because you've been faithful in the planting season, faithfulness in obscurity always precedes fruitfulness in visibility. And when you plant in prayer, in discipline, in service, in sacrifice, and in silence, you activate a spiritual law that cannot be broken. What you sow, you must reap. And while others may not have seen the long nights, the obedience, the rejections you endured, or the seeds you planted when it cost you everything, heaven saw it all. Every seed you sowed in faith has been recorded, and it is impossible for it not to bear fruit when the due season arrives. The process of sowing doesn't look glamorous. It's often lonely, invisible, and filled with doubts. You pour into others who don't pour back. You give when it feels like you're being drained. You show up, stay consistent, and wonder if it even matters. But the harvest doesn't come to the one who feels good. It comes to the one who is faithful. You don't need applause to qualify for breakthrough. You need consistency. You don't need a stage to be seen by God. You need a heart that doesn't quit even when there's no sign of reward. Because in the kingdom, the law of sowing and reaping is not just a suggestion, it's a principle. It is a divine promise that what goes out in faith must come back multiplied. There's a reason why harvest doesn't show up the day. You are not being blessed just for yourself, but to be a blessing. The favor on your life is not accidental and is not meant to terminate with you. Everything God gives, whether it's wealth, influence, wisdom, or opportunity, is given with a divine expectation that it will flow through you, not just to you. You are a vessel, not a vault. You are a distribution center, not a storage unit. Now, the overflow you're walking into is not just for your comfort, your house, or your name. It's for the impact you've been assigned to make. God's design has always been generational and community-oriented. From the covenant with Abraham to the mission of the early church, the blessing was never about one person alone. Abraham was blessed so that all nations could be blessed through him. The early believers shared what they had so that no one among them lacked. There's power in understanding that your breakthrough is someone else's lifeline. Your obedience opens doors for people you've never even met. Your increase funds dreams, feeds families, educates children, supports missions, restores dignity, and breaks generational curses. Not just in your bloodline, but in entire communities. When you embrace this mindset, you begin to understand why God is serious about abundance. He's not just trying to bless you so you can upgrade your lifestyle, though there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruit of your labor. He's blessing you because your hands are attached to a greater assignment. You carry answers, solutions, and strategies that require resources to activate. Vision needs funding. Impact needs infrastructure. Ministry needs money. Dreams need capital. If your vision is really from God, it's going to outgrow what you can do on your own. That's why he blesses. That's why he increases, because he knows that if he can get it through you, he can keep pouring it to you. This is why selfishness is a spiritual blockage. When you make it all about yourself, you shrink the capacity of the blessing. The more open your hands are, the more God can trust you with. When you hold tightly to what you have out of fear, you actually signal to heaven that you don't trust the source. But when you release, when you give, when you serve, when you build for others, you prove that you understand the flow. The river doesn't run dry when it flows freely. It runs dry when it's dammed up. Your life is meant to be a river of blessing, not a stagnant pool. This is also why generosity is a weapon. It disrupts greed, defeats scarcity, and shifts atmospheres. When you give from a place of revelation, not obligation, you activate supernatural results. You become a magnet for favor. People start sowing into you without you asking. Resources show up from unexpected places. Why? Because heaven recognizes a trustworthy steward. You stop chasing the blessing and start channeling it. It also means